Hello, Star Wars fans! Today is going to be my breakdown review of Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 5, which I am calling Crosshair's Redemption, because we are going to see the multiple steps he goes through on his path to forgiveness and reconciliation, ultimately, with the Bad Batch. I think it's really cool. You're really going to enjoy this. But there are spoilers, so keep that in mind. But as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have the March contest going all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You might win a book or a steel book. And notice we have lots of new options. Andor, Obi-Wan, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Moon Knight. Very, very cool. I love the fact that Disney continues to put these shows on physical media because I know that so many people do indeed love to collect those. So, best of luck, and maybe you'll be able to choose between one of these yourself. Also, we have the membership option in case you're interested in helping me with my goal of doing this full time. You get custom emojis, behind the scenes videos, all kinds of cool stuff. But honestly, no matter how you support the channel, it's all greatly appreciated. Leaving comments, liking videos, subscribing, it all goes a long way. So thank you so much. All right, so we start with Omega getting her first good night's sleep in a long time. I love this. Very cool. Well-deserved after all she's been through to get a very, very good night's sleep. And we immediately find out that they're back on the island of Pabu from Season 2. You might remember seeing that there. And we know that because they talk about a delivery from Shep and Lyanna, who we met in Season 2 on that island. And I'm so happy that they're somewhere peaceful and relaxing. I mean, who wouldn't want to be on this island, right? Please, can I go there? And the best part is nobody knows they're there. So they're able to stay there and just enjoy themselves and relax while they gather their thoughts. All right, and so immediately we start with step one of Crosshair's, eventual path to redemption. But step one is move on like nothing happened, right? Because Omega says, "Where's Crosshair?" And they say, "Well, he wasn't on the ship when we woke up, and he's still adjusting." So that means, if you might remember when I did my breakdown of the previous episode, I was really anxious to see what was going to happen. Let's see the sparks fly as they work on this relationship. Well, what happened is nothing. Crosshair probably just walked on the ship and ignored them, and just no words were shared. Very interesting. In fact, he then moves to step two, which I'm calling ignore the physical signs, because I do think that his twitching in his hand is coming from multiple things. Some of it's his PTSD, his post-traumatic stress from the trauma he's undergone, but I also think some of it is his lack of reconciliation with everybody else. It'll be interesting to see if after this episode, when he has restored himself with the batch, does it get any better? But for now, he's just ignoring it. He's just groaning and moving on and pretending like it's not there. Even when Omega says, "Hey, you know what? I'm sure your hand could be looked at. I'm sure it could get better." Nope, he doesn't want to. He just wants to ignore it and pretend like there are no physical issues that he's undergoing. And in fact, step three, he wants to isolate from others. And I love how perceptive Omega is to say, I know what you're doing, Crosshair, but you can't keep hiding. You need to talk to Hunter. But nope, he doesn't want to do that. Instead, he would rather stay in step four. Bury yourself in your work. Don't we all do that? When we know there's problems in our personal life, we don't want to deal with them, so we just drown ourselves in our work. He says, "I'm not hiding, I'm training." And don't get me wrong, he needs to train. He has the issue with his hand, but instead of dealing with the issue with others, he would rather just sit alone and do his work. And step five, he also pushes the problem off on somebody else. He basically says, "Well, they don't trust me." So what he's really saying is, I don't want to talk to them because they won't listen to me. Why should I apologize to them? Because they don't even trust me anyway. They're not even going to listen to me. So he's pushing the problem over to them. In fact, you can see the them is up on the hill in the upper right there, Crosshair and Hunter. But Omega says, give it time, but you have to talk to them. So wisely, Omega is pushing and prodding him to do what he needs to do, which is talk to those two. And then we pan up to see them up on the top of that cliff there, and we're reminded of how much we love Wrecker. Wrecker basically says, hey, if Omega trusts him, that's good enough for me. He's just like a big teddy bear. I love Wrecker. I'm going to miss him because I am certain he's going to die, and man, that's going to be painful. That's really going to be painful. All right, so then we get a nice timely return from Echo. So the whole gang is back together. I love this hug that Omega gives him. So cool to see them all back as a team. But then we move to stage 6 for Crosshair, which is play the victim. How often do people do this? When you know you're wrong, in fact, you know you've wronged the people around you, what do? Wah, wah, woe is me. So what does he say? What? No hug for me? Yeah, yeah. Play the victim, play the victim. And I love how Echo has no time for it. Echo says, well, that depends. How good is your intel? Like let's go business. I'm not falling in your little victim trap. We're just moving on. Love that. Then here we are now with the business. Step 7. Notice that even in the company of others, keep your distance. Keep your distance. Notice he is leaning away from everyone with his arms crossed. Basically like, I'm not here, just ignore me. So anyway, Omega is talking about her time on Tantus. She says most of the clones, obviously, were held in the detention wing, but I never saw what was in the vault. And neither did we, darn it. We really want to know what's in that vault. Then they ask Crosshair, what do you know? And he says, I was a prisoner, not much to tell. And notice, now he's even turning physically away. So arms are crossed, leaning away, and his head is turning away. That's what you do when you know you need to restore yourself with those around you. You need to apologize, but he's not ready yet. He's going through the steps one by one. So then I love this. Are we learning that the Bad Batch is going to lead an assault on Tantus? I did not see that coming. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I thought maybe Tantus was just going to remain undiscovered through the rest of this season. Oh my word, if they lead an assault on Tantus, wow, that's going to be incredible. Because notice, Omega is talking about maybe the coordinates are on the pad and they can find where the base is. Wow. And then I love this. Tech gets a shout out. Man, poor Tech. R.I.P. Tech. Echo says Imperial encryption will be a problem, especially without Tech. And then notice how every one of them bows their head in respect for him. Isn't that cool? Even Crosshair. So that does show Crosshair must know at this point that Tech is dead. They must have talked to him about it. So very cool. Then I will give Crosshair credit for this. This was a bold choice for him to make because he says then plugging the pad into an Imperial terminal will bypass the encryption. I know a facility. It shouldn't be a problem to infiltrate. Now, they don't understand just how significant this is, but we do, right? Because where is he suggesting? He's suggesting that place where he was betrayed by the Empire. They're going to go back to where he was in Season 2, Episode 12 on that outpost. And remember, this is when he shot that officer, killed the officer, and then he himself was thrown into prison. But of course, he shot the officer because he was betrayed by him. So yeah, that's really impressive that Crosshair was willing to go back here. And we're going to see that I think going back to this location is what led him to move towards reconciliation. So we'll get to that. But not before we get to Step 8. Step 8 is avoid eye contact whenever possible. Notice he sees Hunter, he turns his head, looks the other way, and they pass each other like two ships in the night. How often have you done that with someone who you're ticked off at? I don't even want to look at you. I don't even want to look at you. But this is kind of cool. We get this reminder that Omega is not as young as she looks. Because Crosshair says, you're capable, but you're still a kid. And she comes back with, I'm older than you are, little brother. That's awesome. And it's a good reminder that even though she's a kid, she's been around longer than they have. That's pretty cool. All right, so then we're once again reminded that Wrecker has a heart of gold because he saved Crosshair's armor all this time. In fact, he says it never felt right to get rid of it. Oh, I love it. I love it. And we finally get to see Crosshair back in his armor. Wow, has it been a while since that's happened. And we get to see the team. The whole well, not the whole team, because of course Tech, RIP, is not with us, but that is a really cool shot of everyone back in their armor. Then we move to Step 9. Pick a fight, right? If you can't get out of everybody else's company and you're stuck with them, pick a fight. So they start talking about the raiders that had been around the outpost and how they had to fight them off. And they were like, where are the raiders? And Crosshair says, no, I dealt with all of them. And then Hunter, granted, Hunter's pushing a little bit here, and he says, oh, just following orders. But in fairness, remember, it's Crosshair who betrayed them. So while Hunter's being a little aggressive here, still, the one who wronged them is Crosshair. So the natural response should be to say, you're right, I'm sorry. Nope. He says, well, if you're scared, why don't you wait on the ship? So yeah, Hunter provoked him, but Crosshair's doing what we all do when we know we're wrong, and we don't want to admit it. We just start picking a fight. Crazy. And then, now, he moves to Step 10, which is, okay, if you're going to keep picking at me, I'm just going to ignore you. So Wrecker says, why did the Empire abandon this place? And Crosshair says, well, I guess it served its purpose. And Hunter says, huh, sounds familiar. Ouch. But this time, Crosshair doesn't even respond. It's not even worth picking a fight. I'm just going to take it. But isn't that interesting? Because step 9 was when Hunter jabbed at him, he jabbed back. Step 10 is to go, okay, I got to let this go because I know I'm wrong. I'm just going to take it. I'm just going to take it. And in fact, now that leads him to go and try to process some of his emotions. Now, us guys don't process emotions very well, but this was very emotional for him to see those clone helmets there. And he picks it up and he puts it on the shelf because, remember, that's what they were doing back in the season 2, episode 12. So, yeah, I think going back to this planet reminded him of just how betrayed he felt, and it helped him realize, man, I really betrayed the batch. I gotta come clean. I gotta come clean. And I like that Hunter sees him as he's moving through these stages and just lets him be. Just lets him be. Then step 12. I'm calling this identify with your past because I loved seeing him put the toothpick. If you look real close, you can see the toothpick in his mouth. I don't think he's done that for a while. So this is kind of his old self. He's rediscovering his old self. And I think that helps. When you go back to where you were mentally and physically, then it helps you want to be restored with those around you. So I love that. And then I think that's what prepares him for step 13. Listen to how you hurt others. Let them tell you how you hurt them. So when Hunter says, what did you do to finally get on the Empire's bad side? Betray them like you did with us? No response back from Crosshair. No jabs, no picking a fight. He knows Hunter's right and he's wrong. And in fact, his arm twitches. I really do think the twitching has something to do not just with the PTSD that he's gone through because of the Empire, but also because he's, not reconciled with everybody else. Then, finally, he starts moving to step 14, confess your guilt. Now, he's not going to confess all his guilt, but he does confess one important thing. He says, yeah, I killed an Imperial officer. So yes, I did betray them after they betrayed me. Now, that's not all that he needs to confess. Yeah, that was wrong. And he needed to confess that. But there's a little more you need to confess. He's not quite there yet, but he's starting. He's starting to confess his guilt. But then, this is so typical, once you confess your guilt and you're vulnerable, then you want to divert the discussion away from yourself as quick as you can. So then now he turns it back on Hunter and says, I risked everything to send you that message. You let Omega be taken to Tantus. She went through what she did because you failed. You're angry because she escaped with my help and not yours. Now, for what it's worth, there is some truth to that because Hunter did mess up. Hunter did let Omega get herself in a vulnerable situation, and it was Crosshair that rescued her, not Hunter. However, what Crosshair's doing is diverting away from the real issue. Crosshair, ultimately, you betrayed them. That's what led it to all down the bad path. You betrayed the batch. Deal with it. You got to deal with it. By the way, we're almost there. He's so close to breaking through. But for now, time to argue later, because this worm, WYRM, according to the closed captioning, jumps up out of the ground, nasty looking. Now, I know that probably for a lot of people, especially with Dune 2 in theaters, it's easy to think of Dune when you see this and think of the worms. I'll be honest, to me, the worms are not the first thing that came to mind, especially with this shot. Notice on the left, that's the snow being driven up from the ground as the worm, WYRM, is chasing them. You know what I thought of? Not so much Dune. I thought of the epic movie Tremors. If you've never seen Tremors, you got to see it. It's a 1990 movie. It's a B movie. It really is. It's not meant to be awesome, but it is nonetheless awesome. It has Kevin Bacon, just his hairdo alone. Watch it for the hairdo. But it's so good. It's just such a good movie. But yeah, this made me think far more of Tremors than the worms, because no one's going to ride these worms, just like no one rode those nasty creatures in Tremors. But anyway, I love Wrecker. Why is there always a huge monster? Because we just love them, Wrecker. We just love the huge monsters. We got to have them. It's Star Wars. You got to have the huge monsters. But anyway, it does kind of raise a question. Would you rather be on top? Notice that's a Crosshair who is facing down the worm heading straight for him. Or would you rather be down below, where Hunter is? I don't know. Given the two, I think I'd rather be on top, but that's just my opinion. But actually, the real answer is neither. You don't want to be in either place. So thank goodness, Crosshair reaches down his gun to help Hunter, who has fallen down the hole, up out of the hole, and then they book it. They book it back behind these sensors again, and I love it. It's like an invisible fence. Anybody that has a dog or knows someone with a dog, there was at least for a while. Do they still make them? I don't even know. Leave in the comments if you know anybody that actually has an invisible fence these days. But it was basically this sound device that kept you from crossing a certain line. So yeah, hey, if it works for dogs, I guess it works for worms. But yeah, I've obviously skipped over a little bit of the episode, but while they were being chased down by the worm, they did get the information off that pad so they could hopefully find Tantus. But I find this part far more interesting. This was the real episode of them being chased. And that leads to step 16, which is go through a bonding experience together, right? Now, for them, it was a near-death experience. It doesn't have to be that crazy, but something that lets you move past your frustrations with each other and realize that at the end of the day, you actually care for each other. So that finally, we can move to step 17. And that is to basically say, I'm sorry in whatever way you can. Now, you're going to see Crosshair never does say the words, I'm sorry. And let me tell you right now, anybody that is in a marriage down the road or in a marriage now and listen to this, trust me, those are the two most important words you can ever learn. But you also have to accept that maybe someone can't say those words, but they still mean it. So let's look at what Crosshair says. I thought I knew what I was getting into with the Empire. I thought I was being a good soldier. So Hunter picks up on the fact that he's, apologizing and says, hey, nobody really understood what was happening back then. And then this is as close as Crosshair can get. He says, I've done things. I've made mistakes. I mean, perfect world, he then would say, I'm sorry. I apologize. But hey, they're two bros. They don't do that, right? I guess. That's fine because Hunter is willing to accept it and says, I have regrets too, Crosshair. All we can do is keep trying to be better. And who knows? There might just be hope for us yet. So that's really cool. To Hunter's credit, he realized that's the best I'm going to get from Crosshair. I need to accept it. That was his apology, and let's move on. And then here is something so important to consider in life. The final step, step 18, is to actually accept the forgiveness that you're given. It's really hard because, sure, Hunter's now said, basically, we're square, we're good. Now Crosshair has to accept that and believe that and find a way to move past the terrible, terrible mistakes he's made and for them to join together as a team once again because they head off on their ship, and I'm telling you, they're going to be on some very dangerous missions, and they need everybody together. So I'm really this was a great episode as we saw Crosshair move through those stages, move through those steps, and finally reconcile. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. This season is fantastic. And man, we got so much more ahead of us. In fact, next week, two episodes, Infiltration and Extraction. Sounds like a really good two-parter. I'm loving this season. Tell me what you think about it, but I am absolutely loving this season. As a reminder, here's the timeline. I think we're probably still not in 17 BBY yet, but my guess is we will be by the end. We'll have to wait and see. No other timeline clues really in this episode, but here's what we got on that. Don't forget, be a subscriber, leave a comment. You might win a book or a steelbook. Of course, we have the membership option. And then, we have the Discord. Here we are talking about this episode and all the spoilers. So almost 1,300 people from around the globe, conversations 24/7. I will leave a pinned comment in case you want to join us. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and we will all eagerly await the next 2 episodes of The Bad Batch.